So let's talk about turmeric and curcumin. Everybody knows about it, but nobody understands it. Right? So the average person that I speak to, everybody hears, oh, turmeric, 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 or they use this word interchangeably, turmeric, curcumin, turmeric, curcumin, turmeric, curcumin. It's not the same. What turmeric is the rhizome, right? It's the root of the plant. And curcumin is 2 to 5% that is extracted out. Curcumin is 2 to 5% of extracted out of turmeric. And it's of these 3 curcuminoids, that's why they call it C3, 3 different curcuminoids, and what was patented was how they extracted it at a specific ratio, and they made it 95%. Unfortunately, a lot of the companies and almost all the markets, I'll show you in a couple other slides, they said 95% curcuminoids, everybody's taking 95% curcuminoids, and then we will show you, we can talk about that they have very little anti-inflammatory effect because it's not the same 3, it's not the same ratio, and most of them right now are synthetic. Now, 16,000 publications. There's almost like 4,000 or so publications since last. It's like exponential research. And in fact, some of the biggest, largest research companies now that are doing the research is drug companies, because we're now looking at synergistic effects with many chemotherapy agents. In my book, I list them, but now there's a list of even more. There's certain chemotherapies now, for example, that when we give curcumin, these are trials, these are phase 1, phase 2 studies. They're showing benefits now that how can we synergize? How can we make a drug work better? And more importantly, how can we lower the risk of side effects, right? Now, if it works just as good like this, we also have studies saying just by itself how well it can do, right? But this is, when we're integrative medicine, our whole goal is to improve your outcome. It's not saying this is better than that. It's like, how do I improve your outcome by lowering your risk of side effects, right? And there's been no reports of deaths. There has been some side effects with generic turmeric with lead. I'll talk about that in the next slide. But really, all we're getting with the food part is tasty meals. Should people be eating turmeric every day? Absolutely. Is it going to give them the profound physiological response as it would as a pill that we're going to give? No. But is it going to give you other aspects of benefits? Sure. Definitely. I recommend taking turmeric every day, right? But a lot of people, even when they take turmeric powder, if it's not organic, if it's not, if it's not pesticide free, and, if it's not checked for lead contaminant, they can actually be doing more harm than good. The summary now of just inflammation with curcumin is it blocks NF-kappa beta. In fact, it also blocks TNF-alpha. Remember that master drug, the biologics? Curcumin is an oral TNF-alpha blocker. So they have wonderful studies that were done at one of the cancer hospitals in Houston showing that, just an oral, and that's why when we put on our product, we put the exact amount that we need for just lowering TNF-alpha, right? And NF-kappa beta and COX-2 and LOX and C-reactive protein, all these different type of inflammatory markers, all these things that are involved with gene regulation up and down. This is what curcumin, 97 mechanisms. So when people take an ibuprofen, for example, or naproxen, it's just a COX inhibitor. Celebrex is just a COX inhibitor. It's not doing anything else. So you're just hitting that one pathway over and over and over. And we're looking at when we eat foods like plant-based diet, you're getting thousands and thousands of phytochemicals, so this cascade of effect, right? And same thing when we're giving the natural agents, what we're trying to do is what I call the sprinkler system effect. We want to turn on the sprinkler system in the building. I don't need to get just a big fire hose and just put out the fire. If I just have the sprinkler system, it puts out the fire, but I'm not causing damage to the rest of the environment. Now, when we talk about treatment of cancer or the use of curcumin in cancer patients and the research, is that it's not just a suppressor. Everybody, again, turn off inflammation. But in fact, it actually is turning on 202 mRNAs and turning down 505 transcripts. So what this means is it's turning on genes that are helping the regulation of cancer cells. It's turning on certain things that increase your immune system functioning. And it's not going to be looking at just turning off things. So it's not a suppressor only. It's multi-targeted and mono-targeted. What do I mean by that? Now, my book will go so much into detail of like pages and pages of these things and showing you all the different cascades and receptors. But really, you want to look at like, here's the inflammation. These are multi-targeted, right? So it works on all the inflammatory cytokines, enzymes, growth factors, receptors, adhesion molecules, etc. But also it has the mono-targeted effects like here's your Celebrex, here's your Remicade, your Humira, your Enbrel, your Herceptin, your Avastin, your Paclitaxel. These are the things that it is working on the same pathway. You just need to get the right form and the right dose. And that's what we're able to provide when people come see me or they use our products. Now, just more recently, with the year of COVID and still going on, now, if you go to our website, there's going to be all the links to the most current research. All these ingredients in our Bosmeric, actually, we pull up the literature on PubMed and we put those articles available to you, because it's not me saying this. This is what the peer-reviewed scientific literature. So we're looking at now like curcumin and how it's actually helping lower. Now, I'm not telling people take curcumin and don't get the vaccine. Don't get me wrong there. Vaccine, you should be getting vaccinated. However, we're looking at, can we still lower effects? Because still there's a small subset of people who have vaccines still get sick, or there's still, like, remember, there's variants that can still change, or the efficacy of the patient's immune system can vary in terms of how much their antibody response they will get right from that. And also, why not just take something that will prevent all these other diseases, and in case COVID comes by, that would be an extra safety net, right? It's just like having not only airbags, but having a seatbelt and having a bumper. You want to have as many things in your car to prevent you from crashing, right? So now the research is showing like all the different aspects, and particularly this inflammatory cascade, because we're trying to prevent this long-term. The 30% of the people that have asymptomatic, they were talking about this all week, but 30% of the people, and I'm seeing a lot of these 30% of patients, by the way, the long haulers, is that what do we do for them? So there's a lot of things that they have chronic post-inflammatory damage. And that's our whole goal. And we do the whole thing. We evaluate their nutrition, we evaluate their foods that were triggering more inflammation in them, remove that. Strengthen their immune system with like glucan and 300 and like vitamin D and a variety of other things, because we have to get the body stronger now. And they have this chronic inflammatory response because, this is what's happening from the virus. Okay. Now, the problems with turmeric and curcumin is the following. It's growing its market size. Again, some of the biggest market share of curcumin is actually by pharmaceutical companies using it in research now, because they're, again, looking at synergistic aspects. But the ground turmeric now is one of the largest sources of lead exposure in the United States, because so many people are using it. So many people are putting golden milk, hopefully plant-based, but they're putting it, having, Asian food like Thai curry, which is great, all these wonderful things. They're putting, turmeric in their coffee, and there's all these products out there, but generic ground turmeric is a source of lead, because there's lead chromate in the machines that come on China that are grinding the rhizome, meaning the skin off the root, and that's where the lead contamination is coming from. So when we use RC3 complex, for example, there is no lead. We don't use those machines. In fact, it's vertically integrated from the 400,000 acres in 4 countries which they control, all the way to the manufacturing facilities, actually from the studies as well, all the way to when you get it. Like, we don't have anybody else touch it, because if you can vertically control your crop, just like a food supplier, if they can get you directly farm to table, then no one else. Every time someone touches it, problems can occur. Most, if not all, turmeric on the market is sprayed with pesticides. Turmeric, ginger, anything that's a root crop or a berry, heavily sprayed. Okay, so even if you go to the health store and it says turmeric, and they go, oh, it's healthy for you, if it's not organic, or if they can't show you a certification saying it's pesticide free, I wouldn't be consuming it. I did an analysis last month on Amazon's top seller. There was a turmeric product, right? They sold $1.2 million of product last month. And when we analyze the base cost of their, we can backwards do this by software and also by analysis of what they're doing, is their base cost, meaning 100 capsules of 1,000 milligrams of what they're claiming is turmeric and curcumin, with package and label and everything, was $4. Is it real? And I'm betting the odds that it's not going to be real. Why? Because, recently there was a lawsuit, that happened, and I was actually knowledgeable of participating and understanding what's happening in the market share, is that 43% of the largest supplier of curcumin to the United States is synthetic. So what happens, there's these large manufacturers that sell, like from India and China to the United States, and then there's like 5, 10 big companies they'll take it, and then they sell it to hundreds and hundreds of manufacturers, right? So it's like, so if you go to the grocery market or a doctor's brand, they're all getting it from just a handful of suppliers, right? So when you look at like who's sourcing them, 43% of that we're finding out is to be synthetic. They can actually manufacture a synthetic curcuminoid, but they're not giving you the 3 specific curcuminoids in that specific ratio. And there is other issues with solvents and other chemicals that are coming in the synthetic molecules. More recently, we did a study, not me, but the universities, independent universities did, where they actually took the top 5 suppliers who sell 95% curcuminoids. Because remember, everybody's trying to look at this C3 complex data and say, well, let me just put generic 95%. These are all the companies that you go to the store, you say like, man, they have all the aisle. They have all the kiosks. You'll see them in every, from small town America to the big city in New York, right? Every place you'll see these brands. They took the top 5 suppliers, the suppliers to those big brands. That means that they also are supplying hundreds of other turmeric products in the market. And when they did this, the cell culture and the animal studies looking at inflammation and how it works, very little inflammatory response. Shocking. It was so shocking to most people because everybody's like, but there are 95% curcuminoids. And I've been taking it. I go, well, you're not really getting that much benefit. There was only one product that did show to have the effect, and it's the one that was patented. That's the one that we've created the monograph for the federal government of curcuminoids. You have to understand science, but everybody wants to take something and market it to you inappropriately. So there's a fancy marketing aspect that's also been happening in the last 8 to 10 years. It's talking about increasing absorption. And they'll say that increases efficacy, but it doesn't. So there's a lot of companies that'll say, oh, we have nanoparticles or phospholipids or lecithin proteins. Let's put the curcumin in a fat molecule to get it into your cell better. And so they're claiming like higher bioavailability in a cell culture, by the way, and like a little test tube, okay? And that does not correlate to efficacy in the human being. So they have all these, these graphs. They'll come in to doctors' offices. They'll be at the health stores, and they'll say 29 times, 68 times, 128 times more absorbable curcumin, for example. And but it's not. What they're measuring actually is something called gluconorides, and gluconorides are a metabolite of turmeric and curcumin that have no anti-inflammatory effects. So when they're measuring nothing that has nothing, it's nothing. But what it does is it has this great aspect of like, well, it's stronger, it's better, it's faster, and it's able for them to provide less curcuminoids. So most of those products will have 30% curcuminoids, 10% curcuminoids. And what that does is it allows them to give you a cheaper product, sometimes more expensive because they'll say it's higher absorbability. So the price point will be higher, but their margin is much, much, much less. And the profitability of the retailer is much higher. So the gold standard that we recommend is called C3 complex. That's in our Bosmeric. There's over 144 direct clinical and preclinical studies, more than any other form. So if I take every patented other form and I put them together, they have about 25 studies. Most of them are white papers, which are just advertorials in a way. And then everything else that you see in the health store and health market has no studies. So I understand when plant-based doctors like don't take supplements because they're nervous about it. Yes, I'm nervous about it. But when I can provide that guidance of here, this is how we can use it as a medicine. This is what we're looking at. The 3 specific curcuminoids, no heavy metals, no solvents, no synthetic curcuminoids, no nanoparticles. Here's another super, super important understanding of all supplements: irradiation. So anything that comes into the United States after 9/11 is irradiated. Okay? That means all your food, all your herbs, all your spices, all your supplement powders are coming from China and India, Indonesia, or Mexico, or wherever it's coming from. It's irradiated because of this Bioterrorism Act after 9/11. So what happens is they take the food, the product, it goes through the machine because they have to radiate in case they had any kind of biohazard contaminants, fear of terrorism. Never proved to be true, but it still happens today. So what happens is that, it's like taking your fresh live food. For those people who understand like fresh foods, it's like, well, do I need to microwave it? We know that certain radiological aspects to food lowers the biological activity, right? It's like microwaving your spinach for too long can actually lower the biological benefits of the viability of the foods. So same thing. So what we have to do is we have to go through the special avenues, which costs more, right? We have to go through customs. We have to go through certain certifications to pass all these government tests, because we're not going through the machine, but to show potency, purity, safety, that it doesn't have these other type of things. And that's what is able to preserve the efficacy of the product.